the current situation in terms of government help that's available? Obviously, there are loans available for university. I think I caught the end of the grant era, but that's long gone now. And you have tax credits and child support, I think, when they're younger. But I mean, broadly speaking, do you feel that the support from the government is in the right place in terms of the age of children compared to where the big expenses are?
We have lots of women on our site discussing things like benefits and getting sort of council houses and that kind of thing. Most of them are complaining about it, about the system not being fair. I don't really know. I suppose it's each individual situation,
Okay.
but I think the general feeling is that it doesn't quite work.
Right. Okay. Is that something that you'd echo?
Well, I'd probably want to make the point that as an insurance group, LV is not trying to make any political point with the research. We're just trying to raise the awareness, which I think is an important thing in itself, just to make sure people know what kind of costs are involved, how they're made up, and perhaps to provide some guidance towards how they can plan to cover them. So, I mean, politics we'll leave to others.
Sure. If people are interested by, looking a little bit further into the report, where can they find a bit more information?
Well, the report really spells out all the detail that we've researched, and they can find the press release on the lv.com website. That's lv.com, and that'll list the full details of the research. But there's a lot of wider issues around that, and it's through various websites out there like gurgle.com where they can find lots of information more specifically about childcare issues and parenting issues, and I know about financial planning issues as well.
Okay, now crystal ball time. You've had 7 years of the report. What do you feel the next few years are going to show? Is the rate of increase likely to slow down, or are there still drivers out there that are pushing it rapidly upwards?
It's hard to predict these things, but I think the costs are likely to escalate, albeit maybe more slowly than before, because we have been in a low interest rate environment for a while. Having said that, things can change fast in the financial markets, and that might not be the case going forward. So I think we'll be looking at a gradual increase and nothing too significant, hopefully, in the next 2 to 3 years.
Do you think parents, Nifa, are, judging from the sort of traffic in the forums, are they on top of their finances, or are they, always playing catch up a little bit?
I think the good thing that's come out of the recession, if there can be a good thing, it's that people are more aware of their money, they're more aware of budgeting, they're hopefully more aware about saving, and also probably thinking that things are a little bit more fragile. So, things like credit cards, hopefully now they've come out of the recession, if we are out of it, feeling like they don't want to get into those kind of debts that maybe they were in before. And maybe just being a little bit more aware that the whole economy is quite fragile, and our jobs are all fragile, and having to pay things like childcare. Just hopefully they're just a little bit more aware, and really also educating their children is a good thing as well. Hopefully they'll be giving them pocket money, making them a bit more financially aware. That would be a really good outcome of the financial climate.
Now, we've had a few comments here, because as you'd expect, whenever you put out any sort of research, people have some views about it. Got one from Carl here and another one from Andrea saying, I don't agree with these figures. I've never spent more than, I said in one case, £10,000 a year and the other £8,000 a year, and my children have never gone without. So how are they managing it, do you think?
Well, what we looked at with the research was these are all the things that you might want to and are available to provide for your children through that whole age period. And clearly not everybody is going to always go for an expensive holiday 3 times a year, or expensive sports equipment, support all of the hobbies and so on. So I'm not surprised if people say they've brought up children spending less than that, and I'm sure they've done that fantastically. So this is just a guide to what you could potentially spend if you did all of these things through a child's life and they went to university as well.
Now, what are the consequences of sort of short-term money-saving measures if you've got big bills to face? What have you found, Nigel?
Well, the things that you need to be careful to watch for, which I mentioned earlier, is around savings and any insurance protection you might have against your income. That it's very easy in the short term to think, well, that's costing me 20 quid a month or whatever, I'll just cut that and put that towards my living expenses. But there are some long-term expenses that we think are worth investing in, because you don't know what's going to be ahead of you, and having children is about being able to commit for a long period of support over many years, and sometimes you need some protection in place to help do that.
I mean, presumably that's quite a common feature, isn't it? Big bills crop up for child-related things, and suddenly it's a kind of immediate worry then and there how you're going to pay it. I mean, what sort of budgeting advice do you tend to give when people are in these sort of situations?
Well, I suppose it's to think about that. It's so uncertain. You just don't know what's going to be around the corner and which sort of big things you're going to have to pay out. Even things like, suddenly your car goes wrong and so you're going to have to fix it, replace it. It's really good to have some kind of savings. And also, I suppose not being hugely precious about them, they're there so that you can sort yourselves out in little tiny financial crises as well, So if something does happen, you've got that little pot of money, hopefully it will take a little bit of stress off you and your family life.
Saoirse here needs a bit of guidance. She said, is there a formula for how much to spend on holidays, versus the weekly shop, sort of the occasional things versus the, everyday things? Any advice?
Well, there isn't a formula. I don't know of any kind of formula, but I suppose it's like Nigel said before. It's a balance.
Put a little bit away, possibly for the for the big things every year. That's from your weekly savings.
I'm sure some creative mathematician could come up with a formula. Whether it would actually mean anything, I don't know, because there's not going to be a direct relationship with these things. Sometimes you might treat yourselves once every few years to a really special holiday, and that's obviously going to cost more and not accord to the formula for an average holiday. So it'd be difficult to do, but maybe there's a challenge out there for someone to come up with it.
Someone like LV, perhaps. All right, let's take in the last couple of questions here. I mean, broadly speaking, what sort of advice do you have for people in terms of child on the way or planning for a child, planning their budget? We talked about childcare and education being the two big ticket items, but is there any sort of overriding theme that they should have? Child on the way, what should my first intention be?
Well, the only thing I would say is look forward to it with amazing anticipation and excitement, because it's coming into the best period of your life, and although there will be costs, see if you can plan towards them with a bit of saving, but don't worry about that, because what will be. You'll make your child happy, I'm sure, and you'll have to provide for them as best you can. And the important thing is to enjoy that and do what you can, and plan and save towards the longer term if you can.
It's very true, isn't it? They don't all need the most expensive of everything, do they?
No, they don't need the most expensive, and also you've got to remember that when your child's first born, they don't realise that they're in the most expensive buggy or that they're dressed in designer clothes or whatever. They don't realise and don't care, and they're probably going to be sick on it anyway. So, don't go out and spend money on the most expensive stuff, because children grow so quickly that 2-3 months down the line they've grown out of it and it's put up in your attic.
Yes, that's a very good point, isn't it? Actually, it ties into something Rebecca's just emailed us in to say. People don't seem to make their own clothes or furniture anymore. Now, she says, do you blame the media for increased desire for consumption? I think we might park the kind of the more contentious side of it, but that point about making and doing it yourself, it has seemed to rather fallen out of fashion, hasn't it?
I don't know. I think there's been a knitting resurgence. I think it's fantastic if you've got the time to sit and make things, but don't forget, lots of parents both work. Mums are going back to work as well. Probably much more than they were a generation ago. So, I don't know where a working mum might find the time to knit some clothes. Fantastic if she does.
Nigel, in terms of your little ones growing up compared to now, is there less of making it yourself and more getting it off the shelf?
I don't think it's changed enormously, to be honest. Looking back over the last 20 years or so, when my children have been growing up. There's certainly less handing down in the later years because they get more fussy, and when they're, as Nifa's saying, when they're sort of 2, 4, 6, 8 years old, they don't really know or care. When they get a little bit older, then they do tend to turn their nose up at their elder brother's sweatshirts. So perhaps there's a slight change there, but I think there's a lot of consistent things that go on over the generations, however you look at it.
Excellent. All right, well, look, thank you both very much. We're just about out of time now. You can see this webcast again on the on-demand version, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this Cost of a Child webcast. To my guests, Nigel Snell and Nifa McLaughlin, thank you both very much indeed. And thank you for watching. and good luck with your child raising.